What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 47 of To the Show We Go. We have Ed Hand and myself, Andrew Parker. Well, today's episode, we have another Woo Sock on the show. This past year, I feel like there was about 18 lefties on the team, and we do have one of them today. We have Rio Gomez. Now, Rio, we're going to dive into some baseball stuff in a bit.
Yeah.
What has this offseason been up? I guess, how has it been treating you so far?
Yeah. Off season's been great. A little shorter than normal. I played in the Dominican for about a month. But in between that, I came home, which is Arizona. Arizona's home for me. Came home for about 2-ish weeks, maybe even less, about a week and a half before the DR. And then I got back just before Thanksgiving. So a little over a month now that I've been home, and it's been nice to be home, settle in, and can't complain about the weather here in Arizona this time of year. It's vastly different than what you guys are experiencing up there in the Northeast. So
How was the Dominican? How was that your first time out there?
that was my first time ever, like baseball vacation. I've never been to the DR before, so that was my first time. It was an experience to say the least. There's some good sides and some bad sides. So I think the best way to sum it up is just like an experience. I would do it again. I would definitely do it again, but there were some parts that felt a little more grindy than it needed to be. That I guess I wasn't really expecting. There was a couple days where I took a shower out of a bucket. Yeah, water wasn't running that day at the field, so you just make do with what you got and shower out of a bucket.
Now, how does that compare to what you've experienced in the minors? Have you ever had anything even similar like that happen to you in like low A or something?
Not even remotely close. That actually never. That was my first time showering out of a bucket in my entire life, so that was a whole new experience on its own. But no, not even remotely close. But yeah, I think some parts can compare to the AAA side, and then some parts also compare to like a short season side. So it was kind of odd how like just like the combination worked where the field I was at. So I played for the Estrellas, which was in San Pedro, which is about an hour outside of the capital, maybe a little bit more, on the coast. So the field was a bit like a high school field, a little bumpy. There's some holes in the outfield, things like that. And when I first got there, I was just like, oh well, that's part of it. Like, yeah, this is the premier winter league destination, but so is the Cape Cod for college summer ball, and those fields are also high school, bumpy, not in the best shape. So I was like, oh, the Cape was like this, so the DR must be like this. And then first away game, perfectly manicured field at a different stadium, and I was like, oh, it's just us.
Bet on the wrong horse on this one.
Yeah, yeah. Like I had no idea what I was getting myself into, so I couldn't have chosen a different one or chosen different and known any better. Um, but yeah, it was a cool experience, and thankfully, speaking Spanish made things a lot easier.
So,
How are the crowds there?
Man, electric. It felt I can't compare it to even like an MLB game. Just because like the energy, the size is obviously going to be much smaller. The stadiums aren't probably comparable to about double A size stadiums, but the noise and the energy that is brought, it feels like there's more than 50,000 people at the games. There's chanting, there's bands and drums and music and just so much noise and like music's being played, not even in between at bats, but in between pitch. The second the ball's released, the music turns back on, and it is on for the next 15 seconds, and then boom, the music just shuts off, and it's full blast. So it's electric atmosphere, which was very cool to see. It felt kind of like a couple of the WBC games that I was lucky enough to play in, but at a smaller level.
Yeah, because you. I was gonna say because you pitched for you were with Columbia for the WBC last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like how are the crowds for that? Like, was it more or less than you were getting in the Dominican?
Those were bigger. So like the games I played in WBC were at Chase Field Stadium, which is right here, so home of the Diamondbacks. And I mean that seats like
Gotcha.
45,000. It's bigger than a Fenway. And like the first game we played Mexico, that was sold out, and 90% of that crowd was for Team Mexico. And same thing, there was the bands and the noise and electricity. So when you're hearing 45,000 plus chanting and dancing and singing and moving to the music that's brought in, that was, I think, the most like unbelievable. I can't even compare that to anything that I've ever experienced. Where you're just sitting in the bullpen and you're just looking up and looking around. You're like, wow, this does not feel like a baseball game one bit, but it makes things a lot more fun than it should be.
It sounds like it was a lot different than the experience in Worcester that you got to experience the end of the year. I know that they do bring a good crowd, but I feel like it's got nothing on that kind of environment, especially what you just had in winter ball. But um, speaking of the 2023 year that you got to pitch in Worcester to end it, what was
Yeah.
it like finally getting to AAA and I guess just getting a taste of being in the locker room and around that team?
Yeah, honestly, this was one of my favorite years of baseball that I've had. My 7 years with the Red Sox. This is probably number one or number two, and a lot of it has to do with not what happens on the field, but in the clubhouse. And I think it's just the chemistry, the group of guys we had, where it just really felt like a family. And it was really enjoyable every day to go to the stadium. Where like I looked forward to it. It wasn't, it's not July or August. And you're like, oh man, season's dragging on. I'm ready to be done with this. But no, it's just like, man, this is fun. Like the group of guys we had, like I said, like just the coaches, and obviously it starts from the coaches down. The coaches, but just the energy that was brought day in and day out. Like it was a fun place to be. It was an enjoyable place to be. Which when you go to the field 6 days of the week, every single week for 5 6 months straight, that that changes the course of how the season will go out. Where you feel that energy and that love and just like what is brought inside of the clubhouse, where it makes playing the game that much more enjoyable and just also that much more easier, where it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like a job in these kinds of situations. It just feels more like fun, and you get to fall back in love with the game, which doesn't always happen when you're at this level of professional baseball or whatever level of professional baseball. But sometimes there's times and years where it feels more like a job, and this year did not feel like that. At 12 years old, playing with your friends and going to little league, showing up.
I remember early in the season, getting to the stadium, and you had a locker set up there. It looked like you were going to be on the AAA squad, and then
Hmm.
they sent you back down to AA. But the locker was still there for a while, and then eventually you got called back up again,
Right.
stuck around. But what was going on there that like the first month or two?
Yeah, so I originally broke with AAA, but then Andrew Politti cost me my spot. Hidden getting sent back from the Orioles to us. Man, I was the low man on the totem pole, so I got bumped to AA. And obviously, that was a move that no one expected. I think everyone expected that Politti would be with the Orioles and stick all the way through. And obviously, no one on the Red Sox was expecting him to come back. So yeah, so that's what happened. I went back to AA for about a month and a half, and then found my way back to Worcester again.
And were you starting at AA? Because that was the big thing for me that was really interesting about your
Yeah,
season, was that they had you going 5 innings
right.
after being a career reliever.
Yeah, I've done the last 6.5 years all in relief, and then and even in Portland this year, I was also in a relief, and it kind of started in short relief, inning at a time, late in the ball game back in, and then it kind of just started moving more towards middle relief, and then the expansion of innings and just a second inning, a third inning. I think the week before I got called up, I threw 4 perfect innings against Hartford out of the bullpen, and I think that's what kind of pushed them to them realizing, hey, we could push this guy in the rotation. I think he can hold his own. He can give us innings, and not feel like it's like an opener, but more of like an actual starter. And I was so incredibly happy and appreciative about being moved back to the rotation where I think it just opened up a new role for what I can do as a pitcher.
Now, was that Hartford game the one where you struck out like 7 in a row or something? It was something. I remember following the box score of it as it was going on. It was like, oh, Rio struck out okay, he just struck out the side again. Was
Yeah.
that game?
No, that was actually a different game. Because I can remember the game where I went perfect against Hartford, and that was at Hartford. I think I only struck out like 3 or 4, which is a little bit lower than what I expect or what I want from myself in terms of strikeouts. I like to pride myself in always being over one inning, one strikeout per inning. And yeah, I remember that one. I was like, wow, like I only struck out like 3 or 4 guys, but at the same time, like I absolutely dominated these guys. Like the rest of the guys that didn't strike out, I was like, wow, like that was like a dominating 4 innings right there, and without the strikeouts to come with them.
Yeah, 'cause you just
When
went on
you
some kind of a run there. It was great. Sorry, Barker.
No, it's all good. We've had a few of the guys from the pitching staff in Worcester on the show this offseason. I want to know your thoughts on just the amount of left-handers on that pitching staff. Was it
Yeah,
the most you've ever seen?
without a doubt. I've never been on a team. I mean, I've been on plenty of teams in my past where I'm the only left-hander, in the bullpen, or the only left-hander in the entire staff, starting bullpen combined. And there was times this year where we outnumbered the righties, which was a feat that I've never seen happen before. And I thought it was pretty cool. It was pretty fun. And what was nice is that like all the lefties that were there were, kind of brought their own style and their own game uh individually, where it didn't feel like anybody was like really a copycat of each other. So it definitely worked out.
And so I gravitated towards a lefty on the roster in Brendan Nail because I think Brendan
Yeah.
Nail has one of the better stories, obviously being an undrafted guy, working his way. I mean, similar to you, just kind of being, you were a late round guy. He was
Right.
undrafted and just getting in the organization it seems like almost a decade ago, I feel like, is when you guys first
It
entered.
does feel that
But
long ago
well,
now.
COVID happened, so I feel like that added like 10 years onto the
Yeah, that's
career.
those sole
But
3 years is just one big blur right there.
yeah, so I gravitated toward it because you guys, you kind of were, being the late round pick you were, being an undrafted guy like him, you guys weave your way through the system. You finally get to AAA this year. And I remember asking Brendan, I'm like, how good does that feel to be like, you're not there yet, but you are
Mhm.
one phone call away from being where you want to be. And I feel like for him, it's just like he's overcome so much. And especially, for being a guy that was undrafted, not expected to
Right.
get anywhere. So I guess my question is like, how did you feel, I guess, once you got to AAA? Like, was it one of those where you were like, okay, I'm one call away from where I want to be? Or was it like, holy cow, I've come a heck of a long way. I wasn't expecting to be here type of thing?
I think it's a combination of both. I think, obviously, like once you get to AAA, that initial thought is like, oh, I'm just a call away from the dream, the show. But at the same time, I think, if you can be present in the moment, and I think that was something that I excelled at this year compared to others, where I was able to be present, but I could be appreciative of the fact that I was a 36 rounder. My draft pick doesn't even exist anymore. Like there's no more 20 plus rounders anymore. And for the fact that, I've made it through a whole 7-year minor league contract, I made it to AAA, got, to the peak of minor league, I mean, you're really like the second tier from everything in baseball at that point. And just to be able to look back and just like truly enjoy where you're at and just tell yourself, wow, because when I got drafted, I never thought any of this was going to happen. When I got drafted, I was like, wow, I had a 5th year of eligibility, but I told myself like, if you get picked, you're taking it no matter what happens. Granted, I didn't think it was going to be a 36 rounder, but it ended up being that way. And then when that happened, I was like, hell yeah, I'm signing. And if I play a year and a half, and I get released, at least I got to say I got drafted and play professional baseball. And that's kind of just what I thought at that point was like, oh, probably like a year and a half, maybe two. Because that's just kind of what the course of guys who are drafted in the 30 plus round is. And years go by, and then I think, you start to realize you're playing with house money at this point. Um, so the way I looked at it, like when I got called up to AAA, was like, no matter what, it's going to be good. It can't be bad, and because it's not going to be results based. That first start, that first outing that I had in Louisville, I told myself like leading up to it, no matter what happens, it's going to be good because you've made it to AAA. You can officially say you're a AAA baseball player, where even if you pitch terribly and you get pulled before the first inning's over and they release you or they send you back to AA, well, you can always say you're a AAA baseball player. And so for me, like it helped take the results out of, or be worried about the results, I guess. It helped take all that out where I didn't have to worry about any of that anymore because, like, you know what? It's all good at this point. I've achieved so much in my baseball career that I don't need to worry about what happens from here on out.
Yeah, and you've got this was AAA was something that you've never done before, and you've got something you've never done before coming up too, which is free agency.
Yeah.
How has that been your first experience as a baseball free agent? Has the process been treating you?
Yeah, it's been interesting to say the least. I've received a few calls, um, both international and stateside. But I think the biggest thing is just to be patient and hold on. Where you see big leaguers who haven't even been signed yet, so why should you stress yourself out that you haven't been signed either? Where like I know who I am, and like I know I'm AAA depth, and there's nothing wrong with that because AAA depth can still make it to the big leagues. So you just have to hold faith and just stay patient. Where you know guys sometimes get signed in the middle of spring training. Now, obviously, that's not where I want to be, but like there's a lot of time until then, right? There's a lot of time until March. So and if that's the case, like anything can happen in the meantime. So just staying ready, preparing, lifting, throwing, doing all those things as if I already know where I'm going for spring training.
When you get a call about playing internationally, what's the thought that goes into that for you? Is it like because you hear about guys that go to Japan or Korea for a year, somebody like oh my god, I'm Eric Feedy, for example, who went to
Yeah, I actually have.
Korea, won like the Triple Crown there, and just signed a 2-year
Yeah,
deal with the White Sox.
it's incredible. I actually play pickleball with that guy from time to time out here in Arizona. So when I saw, his name and everything on like trade rumors, this was before he signed, and just that, he won the Cy Young and the MVP of KBO, and I was like, wow, like I was like, I know this guy. I play pickleball with this guy. I didn't realize, what kind of year he was having, but and then you see him sign this, 2-year, 15 deal. It's like, wow, like I think that's what's nice is where baseball has gone in this direction where there's not one route anymore. And it used to be that way, but now you've seen it like there's multiple routes. And even if you don't get back stateside after you go international, well, that's okay too, because your career can still be a success. And you can chalk it up that way where, maybe you don't get back into the show or you don't ever get to the show, but the career is still a success because you were able to keep playing and do what you love.
Rio, I have an important question for you. And no, Ed, it's not this question
I
yet.
know it's not. It's too early for that one.
So obviously you saw that the King of Worcester is now in the royal system now.
He's royalty.
Yes.
He is, yes.
Kind of royalty
The
now.
guy has a key to the city in Worcester, so I mean he's pretty much
Right.
king. But so obviously he is no longer in Worcester, and I know Worcester is still mourning over that. So
I have heard actually firsthand that they are still mourning.
I see our friend Ashley Green and Taylor both post plenty of stuff about
Yes.
crying and missing him. So, but my question is, so who is next in line of the succession to the who is the face
Ooh.
of the Woo Sox now?
My vote is Chase Sugar. I think Suge can be the one to step up. He's got a great personality. He's got great energy. He's a lot of fun to be around. I think if he can open that side of him up to the fans, he can become that next guy.
I agree
100%.
with that pick 100%.
If I have to pick a backup, I think my next would have to be Sogard. Sogard is a good one. And then a dark horse, who you guys mentioned before we got on air, would be Jamie Westbrook for me. I've known Jamie since we were about 12 years old, but I've seen how he plays and how he interacts with the fans and the energy that he brings on the field and just like that goofiness. And I think that can play very well in Worcester, and I think he will get along just fine there.
I think I said that exact line to Ed when we had Jamie Westbrook on last week. I said, this might be the guy. Like he
Yeah,
had such a good personality.
he is a ball of energy. He's very extroverted, and he just still acts like a child on the field and like brings like that goofiness that you don't see all the time, where guys are professional or serious, and he doesn't go about his business that way.
So speaking of things that are a little goofy, there was one play in particular that I remember happening last year, and I think you might already know what I'm talking about. But the glove got knocked out of your hand, and you caught it, and it was an out. And I mean,
Yeah.
the way that I'm describing this isn't an exaggeration. This was one of the craziest live baseball feats I have ever seen. What's going through your head when that happens? Because I'm sure that you're like, "Oh my god, is the ball going to hit me?" But did you even notice that like your glove had detached from your hand? Like what's going on?
Absolutely. Well, I think the first thought that came to my mind was, "Oh my God, I'm pitching Matt Adams right here." Uh, you know, this guy's won World Series, has been like a huge name for all these years, and here we go. I'm facing him for the first time. Um, so that was the first thought that came across during that entire at bat was like, wow, this is a guy I watched playing in high school, growing up with. Like, this is cool already on its own. And then that line drive came right back to me. I'm not afraid to admit I have terrible reflexes, and I'm incredibly slow. So big reason why I got pushed to pitcher at a very young, very young age. um, but yeah, it came right back at me, and like usually I stick out my glove for these, and I'm 3 seconds too late, and the ball's already in the shortstop's hands or at the second baseman's hands. So I don't even like expect the ball to be in my glove every time I stick my glove out. It's more just reactionary, but my reaction's too slow, so I miss it every time. That one, I hit my glove, and I couldn't believe it, but my hand was super sweaty that day, so it just slid right off my glove, right off my hand, and I could see the glove spinning like 360 in midair with the ball still in it. Like the ball hadn't shot out, and I was like, "Oh wow, like I still have a chance at this." And so when I grabbed it, I remember like immediately I caught it in midair. The first thing I thought of was like, "Oh, I need to hold the ball up in the air to make sure the umpire sees it." Not even realizing that there's three umpires on the field. There's everyone can clearly see that I caught the ball, but instead, like all I'm worried about is make sure the umpire sees it. Put the ball up in the air so that way he sees it. And yeah, it was one of those where what didn't even come back so hot that it scared me. It was just more just the reaction of just, wow, I can't believe I actually caught a baseball. It just doesn't happen often where I make the out myself. So I couldn't even believe that I made an out right there.
I remember I think I was up in the press box when that happened, and you usually don't hear like gasp and stuff like in the like from Bill Wanless and the guys up there, and you
Right.
heard like gasp and everything, and I think it was our good pal Tyler Murray and Jim on the call, and they were kind of like, holy cow, like what just happened? Like it wasn't every day you heard Bill Wanless though with some emotion, and he had it on that play. I remember that, but so also along with the season, towards the end there. So were you there for Bobby Dahlbeck hit quite a few uh, bombs this past year.
Yes.
Were you there for the one that went off the moving train?
Yes. Yeah,
What
we're
was your
just
initial
snuck
reaction
by
to
the
that?
scoreboard and hit the train.
Yeah.
I remember, so the year before, or maybe in 21, the story of Johan Mieses doing the exact same thing, hitting the tree. Like that story still, hitting the train, still gets told. And, it's been a year or maybe even 2 years since that happened, and it's one of those where, like, you don't forget those things. So that when that happened and you saw it clang off and shoot off, everyone was like, "Wow, I can't believe," because you knew right away, the ball's gone. And everyone
Yeah.
knew that thing is long gone and crushed it. And I guess everyone thought it was going to hit the scoreboard because you see that from time to time, but it just got right around it, sliced right around it, and it hit the train. And we were just like, wow, that is special. And thankfully, in my lifetime, I've been able to see a lot of very cool Bobby Dahlbeck home runs, not just in the Red Sox, but also back in college when we were teammates. A lot of very cool Bobby Dahlbeck home runs take place.
I always forget that he was an Arizona guy. I don't know how that escapes me, but
He's a wildcat.
so that actually I did want to ask. I was going to save this question for later, but I got a bit nostalgic last night watching Monday Night Football, and yeah, Monday Night Football. It's already okay. I had that right. So I was watching Monday Night Football.
No, you had it. You got it.
The good old Seahawks were on, and my college quarterback, Drew Lock, was absolutely slinging out there. Gave one of the best post-game interviews of all time.
That was an incredible interview.
Oh, fantastic. I love that out of him. But so that's who I got to watch in my college years. And that kind of got me thinking. I'm like, Rio's an Arizona guy. I know they're not known for football necessarily, but if you had to pick one athlete, non-baseball, so it can't be any of your teammates or anything like that, who is your Arizona athlete?
Oh, I mean, you're right. Football is not for us. And I'd have a hard time trying to name any football players.
Oh, come on.
I know a football player from UNA.
I
was
played
at
there. No. But while I played there, I can't remember. Is that where? But basketball is for us, and we will always have basketball year in and year out. So while I was there, I mean, DeAndre Ayton came through. There was a couple other guys, and they've made it to the league, but I don't think they had the careers as notable. But TJ McConnell was an undrafted free agent with the Pacers, and he's made a hell of a career for himself because he was a small, undersized white guy who played all 5 years of college. There was never a question where he was going to get drafted early or anything, and he still did after his fifth year. But he was one of my favorite guys to watch who I like. When I think of like Arizona athletes, I was there, he's probably one of them easily, where just because now he has this story that he turned into a full NBA career where, he set himself up great and his family great forever at this point.
So what about all time?
Ooh, all time.
I mean, it's pretty easy.
Non-baseball.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you guys are looking for Teddy Bruschi because you guys are Patriots fans up there. Oh, okay.
There's an even better Patriots guy.
Yeah. Like
Nick Folk.
Oh, Gronk.
Gronk
was a U of A guy.
You know what? I don't always associate him with that, and I forget from time to time.
Is it just because he's from he's from Buffalo, so it's like he's not a real?
Yeah, I don't know. He's just mythical to me, all in all. Until I meet him in person, I don't think he's a real person. Just
that's fair.
I don't know how you live your lives like that. Like he's basically has like 3 different lives that he can live all at once. Where it was football player, party animal, and it's just like I don't know. The older I get, I'm like I don't know how anybody can ever do that and be great and be the best. Not even just great, just the best.
That's fair.
But for me, all time, I think of like Richard Jefferson. I think of like these all time great NBA players that have come through. So that's like I always turn my mind towards basketball.
That's fair. I mean, obviously, like Bruschi was a solid choice too. I'm not dogging on Bruschi at all, but Gronk obviously is Gronk.
Yeah, I forget to put that together sometimes.
It's all good. So I want to ask it, Ed, but I'm gonna save it for later. I think
you can ask it. It's okay.
Okay,
we're at a half hour.
Guys are killing me. Come on, let me know.
Not yet, but
all right.
I spent a little time around the locker room this past year in Worcester, and I saw some intense matchups going on that ping pong table.
Ooh,
but
yes.
I don't think I saw you on the table as often as I saw like a Fitzy, a Sogard, a Politi.
That's fair.
I,
Politi lived on the table. Politi needed to live on the table because he was not very good. So he needed the practice day in and day out.
can I read you a quote from Chase Shugart that he gave us on this show earlier in the offseason about AJ Politi on the table?
I would love to hear it.
He said, and I quote, Politi is a mental midget on the ping pong table. Is that accurate?
It's actually very accurate because I've seen some epic like where he just blows the game. Epic blowouts where you're like, dude, you had me beat by a lot and somehow I came back to beat you. Where that's a great way to put it. When things are going well, things are going really too good for him on the table. But when things go bad, it snowballs really quick and it gets really out of hand. And that's why I think he needed more practice than others. I was on the table plenty. I don't know how you never caught me, but I will say when I was more in the starter routine, there's a lot more stuff that needs to happen leading up to the game on the days that you're not pitching that I was not used to as a reliever because it's a lot more laid back leading up to the game because you might pitch that day, so you can't do as much stuff. But I found myself not having as much free time or leisure time to be able to play ping pong because I was always so busy, which was one con to being a starter.
Like, what was it?
Not that there were many.
Would it just be like more stretching, or like more like you have to get your throwing in, or like what would you be doing differently?
Yeah, it just felt like just every day there was always something. So like the day after you have a full lower body lift, and that's going to eat up some time. And then maybe you want to get your arm worked on or your body worked on. And then day 2 you're going to have a full bullpen, and then you're the last to throw the bull. Starter's always the last to throw the bullpen, so that way the relievers can get their stuff, get in, get out. But then I have a full upper body after that. So there was just stuff that was always going on where I was like, shoot, I want to play ping pong, but there's not enough time.
I feel like it's so funny because I asked Steven Scott like kind of the same question. I'm like, why did I never see you over there playing? And Scott's just like, I just knew my limitations. Like he's not going to go over there with all the psychopaths on the table because he just wouldn't be able to handle it. But
I keep up with all of them. I like when I have my days and I find the time and I get there early enough where I can. I love being on that table.
Okay.
I just found myself more busy than I wanted to be, but a good busy. You priorities.
Yeah. Excluding yourself, who was the best ping pong player there?
Oh, I wouldn't even include myself, but Brandon Walter was, I think, what I can remember offhand, he was one of the best. He just puts a really good spin on his serve, but you can't see the spin. There's no laces, so you can't read anything. And then he has different spin serves that he can put on where you think you're getting, an idea of like where to hit the ball so he can make it back on the other side of the court. And then he puts a different spin and then you're just all over the place. So it was the only time you could score points off Walter was when you were the one serving. You kind of almost had to expect to lose all 5 points every time he was serving.
Weirdly, sounds kind of like how he pitches also.
Honestly, it's a great way to put it because it felt like he was throwing you a slider and then he's throwing you a changeup that moves the other way and you can't see it or read it. So then when you go to put your paddle at an angle to hit it, you end up just shooting it off into the distance. It's really frustrating.
It's a surprising answer, though. I feel like we've asked quite a few guys, and I feel like we got some Dahlbecks, we got Sogard, we even got a Fitzy, I think, because they all have their own paddles. So
they do have their own paddles. I never played Dahlbeck, but I would say Fitzy is probably. I think it's him and Walter 1 and 2.
Interesting. That
Sogard's not up there yet. Don't let Sogard talk you into that one. Okay, he's good, but he's not top 2.
He may have told us himself. I think he may have said he was the guy on there.
Oh, he thinks so. Every time he'd always be like, "Hey, whenever anyone wants to work, let me know. Like, you want to be a part of this?" Running his mouth from his chair. But then you play him, and you're like, it's better.
It's all right.
I will say the ping pong table got brought up. The former best mustache in the locker room, Ryan Fernandez, when he got selected in the Rule 5, I sent him a text and I had asked him. I said, "Are you more excited to get away from the foot of the ping pong table where I watched him get smoked in the side of the head?
Yes,
because he had the unfortunate stall at the end of the table." So.
He wasn't a very good ping pong player anyways. He tried a lot. He tried his hardest, but even when the few times he got on the court, on the table, he was not very good. But yeah, he was in a bad spot for his locker.
Joe Jake said the same thing, man. He got hit right in the chest one time, and he's like, "I'm done again."
Yeah.
All right, Rio. I have a question for you. So you are getting in your car. You need lunch. You want fast food. It's got to be fried chicken. It's got to be a sandwich, strips, you name it, whatever it is. Every single option is open on the table. Where are you going?
In and out. Didn't even have to think about that one. In and out. Every day I will always take In and Out. That's
Is that
probably
considered a burger place?
Yes, it's a burger place. Oh, does that not count? Does it have to be chicken?
It's got to be chicken. I respect
Oh.
the West Coast love right there, but
That's the most Arizona answer you could have possibly given for chicken. Also,
It
yeah, I
is
was kind of like, do
the
they serve chicken?
they don't serve
it's like I don't
chicken.
care. I
Oh,
don't care. In and out.
All I
I
heard
didn't know.
was what was your favorite fast food? I thought that's where the conversation was
I didn't
going.
give you that
I
layup. Come
tuned
on.
out. I was already thinking, but chicken. Probably Popeyes.
Okay.
I over the years I'm starting to think Chick-fil-A is a little overrated, so I can't go with that one anymore. I don't eat a lot of fried chicken sandwiches, but I think Popeyes would have to be the answer for the fast food.
Fair.
What are you
Might be
taking?
that might be our first Popeyes, by the way. I think all
What has
Austin
everyone else been given?
I'm going In and Out burger.
Chick-fil-A.
Now that
I
that's
think
now
I'm
that
also
we've
going In-N-Out
accepted, now that
burger.
we've gone with that's an acceptable answer. I'm going In and Out burger.
I'm going
now.
In-N-Out burger too. It is the first and last thing I eat every year when I leave Arizona and come back to Arizona. 7 years running.
Can I interest you in a just absolutely amazing fried chicken place called Zaxby's?
Ooh, does that count as fast food though?
Well, it's got a drive-through.
Does it? I thought they were only you have to walk in.
Not
Oh,
in
I
my
think you're
college
right.
town.
No, you're right. You're right. Zaxby's does.
It's just
You
like
know,
Cane's,
I
right?
don't.
Like
Yeah, it is right. I don't know if they have Zaxby's out here in Arizona. They have Canes out here, but I don't think we have a Zaxby's.
see, that's fair. See, it's all right. That's fair enough. At least you didn't say Chick-fil-A. We've gotten Chick-fil-A probably 39 times
That's
out
our
of
most
47.
common
I'm over it.
answer.
I'm over it. I
I'm
think
with
it's
you.
overrated. It's the same every
I
time. I think it's yeah.
I love Chick-fil-A, but you know what? It's okay because you said In and Out burger, so it's fine.
He got me for a second. I've never had In-N-Out, so I didn't know if there was chicken on the menu.
You
And
were
that's just
missing
weird
out.
going.
You are
I'm
missing
sorry.
out.
In and Out is like there are two things that we can't get here in the Northeast that I deeply miss, and it's In and Out burger and it's Waffle House, and we don't have either of those in
Ooh, I do
Massachusetts.
love a good Waffle House for breakfast.
Love
Yeah.
Waffle House in Georgia just is an absolute different
Yes.
animal.
When we go down to the south and we play in those places, like if there's a Waffle House nearby, I have to.
Have to go.
I have to. It'd be rude
All right.
not to.
Well, I'm just a little upset though that you never went to the Zaxby's that was right next to the complex in Fort Myers?
I have been there. I only went there once.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've been there once. If you guys do go down to the complex for spring training, there's a place called PDQ that's in Fort Myers.
Second guy.
It is phenomenal. I've never seen it outside of Fort Myers. And maybe it's another place in Florida, but it seems like it's like a local chain. Phenomenal.
We
Who
just
was
had
it that
John
was
Schreiber.
recommending that one
John
to us?
Schreiber.
That was Schreiber? Okay.
John
It is,
Schreiber made
yes.
me look it up, and it looked amazing. And I will be
It
getting that
is.
one of the times I'm down there.
There you go. There's your fried chicken. They have chicken sandwiches, chicken nuggets. They only serve chicken, and they're great. And they have a million sauces to choose from, so it's great.
So this is a non-food question. We're going back to baseball for a second.
Sorry about that.
But we've there was such an infusion of young talent into the Red Sox this season. These are a lot of guys that you got to play with, and I'm just curious about as a pitcher. You had Cedar Rafaela playing center field and shortstop for you at times in AAA. How good is his defense when you're seeing him there? Like, how comfortable do you feel if a ball's hitting his general direction?
Regardless if he's in center or shortstop, I never worry about anything. But when he's in center field, and I think that's his true position, I think like gold gloves, multiple are on his way in center field. And he's easily the best defensive player I've ever seen in person. Not even just like on my team, but just in general, where the plays that he makes, like when I saw it in Portland and in Worcester, I mean, it's unbelievable. The amount of range he has, and I think like the best attribute he has is his first step. It's unbelievable where, ball off the bat, and you can read right away, like it's left center, and you turn around to go see where it is, and he is already on his way there because he can read the ball off the bat better than anyone I've ever seen. Where that first step, he knows exactly where the ball's going to land right off the shoot. I never see him, start left and then all of a sudden he has to like take a different angle to back up or take an angle to come in. I think he just has that first step down where he knows the exact angle of where he needs to go and what the ball is going to do, whether, it's knuckling or slicing or fading down or whatever it is. Like even like the ones right at him, like he knows exactly where to go, and it's unbelievable. I've never seen anybody else be able to play the way he does, and then he's got a great arm to go with it. Like he just has all these attributes on the defensive side where you're just blown away every time. Like that guy just makes a top 10 play at least once a week, if not more, and it's so much fun to have. And as a pitcher, I mean, there's a lot of security where like I don't even care who's playing left or right that day because I know as long as Rafa's in center, left field and right field are almost irrelevant. They know, like left field and right fielder both know, like I don't have to turn towards center field because Rafa's going to beat me to it no matter where that ball's hit.
The other guy that I'm kind of curious about because we got to see him in September and he hit very well was Wilyer Abreu, and he hasn't gotten quite the attention
Yeah,
for his defense the same way that Rafaela does, but he's got we all saw him, his arm, like he's a rifle for an arm. How's he defensively? Like, because I know like he hasn't gotten as much attention, but I know that he spent time in left and center and right. Seems like he has the
right.
arm to handle right field. But how's he?
I think he's the perfect corner outfielder. As long as Rafa's on your team, Wilyer Abreu should never be playing center field is the way I look at it. But as long as Rafa's on your team, no one else should be playing center field ever. But Abreu's arm is incredible. I mean, he has the arm to play right field day in and day out, and he could be a big league right fielder without question because obviously the bat, the way he conducts himself offensively, but then just the way he's able to be on the defensive side, you don't have you don't really have to stress about anything. There's nothing's bad gonna happen. There's other guys, where they're playing outfield and you're like, oh shoot, please catch that, or like please get there, run that down. But like with those two, they're great. And like just like the poise and composure and just like calmness that Abreu brings is also a nice feeling to be around where that energy feeds off to others too.
And now, before we kind of empty the bench, because we're getting towards even a ton of your time, but speaking of defense and a guy you're familiar with Bobby Dahlbeck, I watched him make a play in right field this past
Yeah,
year that Daniel Palka absolutely smoked off of the wall when Syracuse was in town. And I watched him play it perfectly off the wall like he'd been playing right field his entire life and
right.
gun it on a clothesline straight to second base and got Palka by like 4 steps. How impressive was it to see him pick up other positions that he really didn't play in his professional career just so easily?
Not even his professional career, but his amateur career as well. And I think um it's incredible to see where because like in college, there was no way that we would ever put Bob in the outfield. Bob was a third baseman through and through in college. And, that was almost 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever that was. And I think the best thing is like Bob has transformed his body and himself. And this year it really showed off where he is leaner now. He moves better than ever. I mean, he stole double digit bags this year. And you saw him in right field. He runs really well. And obviously, you knew the arm would carry. That was like a no brainer where it was like, okay, I've seen that arm at third base. I've seen that arm on the mound. I knew that arm would carry in right field. But it's more, the positioning, getting yourself to the ball in time, seeing the fly ball, how to track things that, he'd never had to work on as an infielder his entire career, entire life, where I was just amazed at how well of a right fielder he became this year, where I was like, he could be an everyday right fielder. He could pass for one, no doubt. And honestly, talking to him and like at that point, like that's what sold me to come work out at the facility that he's at this off season is because I was talking, I was like, dude, I've never seen you move like this. I've known you since we were 18. It's over 10 years. I've never seen you run this well or move this well. I was like, I want to do what you're doing because it's working clearly. And so now I'm at the same facility as him and me, Jamie Westbrook, Bobby Dahlbeck, Chris Murphy. We're all, I mean, a handful of other guys, but non-Red Sox, but we're all at this facility together. It's been great.
All right, Ed, we are getting to that time. Empty the bench. Our guy Rio over here has given us 45 minutes of his time, so we appreciate that. But what do you got left in the tank?
It's not really a question. It's more just because I know that, you're a free agent. You might not be in the Red Sox organization moving forward, but
Yeah.
I really appreciate how generous you've been with us. Not just today, but throughout the last couple of years as we've been trying to
Right.
kind of get started and just your generosity, your being available, just being down to kind of like shoot the shit, but whatever. Like we were talking about that a little bit before. Like Andrew, if you want to tell him what you were telling me before, because it stood out to, I guess my impression of you just as a person, not even a baseball player.
Yeah. I mean, in my opinion, my answer to the key to the next king of Worcester, if you were still on the roster, I think you're the next, you would have been the heir to the throne. I'm watching Crown right now or whatever it is on Netflix. So I'm a lot of king and queen references. Sorry. But I feel like you would have been that guy. Cause I do remember one day, you remember Tommy Castle from the TNG. But I think me and him were just like talking in the dugout one day, and you were like, you had just got done working out in the field, and you guys all like kind of walked through and passed us and everything.
Right.
And we were talking about like golf. We were talking about something. I don't maybe like the Masters was maybe on. Or like the week before. I don't know what it was, but it was something very random, non-baseball related. We were just talking. I remember you had stopped and you had stopped while we were talking and you had kind of were just like, oh yeah, I watched it. I think it may have been a golf tournament. Had to have been. I think you're a big golf guy. May have been football. I don't know
do
what it
like
was.
golf, but I can't recall offhand right now. It might have been football.
I don't know. It was something, but you stopped and you talked to us for like 20 minutes and we were just kind of like, all right, like that was kind of cool. Like you definitely didn't have to do that. You guys had a lot of stuff to do. You were like, I'm pretty sure you were drenched in sweat because our guy Jordan just put you through like the ringer out there. But I don't know. It's just things like that you kind of, being around like a clubhouse and stuff like that you pick up and you're like, these guys don't really have to do what they do. And you guys still do it and you did it. So it was it's showing. That's what I'll say.
Well, thank you guys. I do appreciate that. I will tell you though that I've, because of my dad and his job, I've always wanted to be able to help any aspiring journalist, regardless of like what stage of career that they're at, just because like I know my dad had to go through the exact same footsteps and it is so helpful to, whether it's you guys or Colleen, who was, in college at the time, whoever it is that like just to be able to like lend that hand and help them out and, be one of the baseball players who, is open and helpful in that sense where whatever I can do to help you guys, with your careers at the same time, because 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever it was, like there was somebody doing the same thing for my dad. And my dad was doing the same thing, helping other aspiring journalists when he was already, at the pinnacle of ESPN, where I want to be able to do my part on that side because I've seen firsthand, well before I was even a professional baseball player, like what that side is and what that entails.
Yeah, it's very appreciated, and I think it goes to show too that I remember going in on media day earlier this year, and I remember Chad Tracy kind of talking about it. He's like, these guys will be around you guys a lot this year. It's like, I feel like he also set a good precedent, and I feel like almost every single person in that locker room was very good about it, but yours definitely did stick out. And obviously guys like Shug and Sogar, Fitzy, they're all amazing as well. Like every single person in that room is, but it definitely stuck out to me. So that's just what I took from that.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. Ed, empty the bench here. Is
That was it. That was
okay?
it. I'm
It ain't any better than that. You know what I'm saying? So,
end on a high note.
all right. Well,
Yeah.
Rio, we appreciate you hopping on. Obviously, we wish you wherever you end up. Obviously, we just want you to be in a good spot. So, looking forward to seeing where that is. By the way, so I'm hoping
Thank you,
to
guys.
And we'll
pull
be
up in
rooting
Twitter
for
one
you
day and we
wherever that
see it.
is.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be an exciting time when it comes. So I'm excited for it.
awesome. Well, we appreciate all the time and thank you so much. And we'll be rooting for you. And like I said, we'll see you at some point down the line. So it's
Yeah. No, it's a small world. I fully expect to see you guys at one point or another at some point. So